Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
So here's today's story. All these stories, again, they're in the context of Rabbi Yel's Fabrengen, so there's stories to think about. On one occasion, one of the maskilim means those who had fallen prey to the Enlightenment movement, which rejected a purely rational approach to Yiddishkeit and reject and undermine the foundations of Yiddishkeit. It's the beginning of essentially the philosophy of the Reform movement, etc. Anyway, so one of the maskilim came to one of the Chassidim of the Tzemach Tzedek, and he began to speak disparagingly about Rebbes. And he says, this whole business that people come and they give kvitlach, and the whole conduct, he said, of the Rebbes, it's all their personal interest and agenda. They want covered and the money, etc. The whole thing, he says, it's a sham. So the Chassid decided to answer him by means of a moshel. He says, in those days, this is Rabbi Yel speaking, he's telling the story, in those days, life was very different. And the material abundance didn't exist like it is today. And people used to buy meat only the covered Shabbos. And even then, a small piece. Likewise, in those days, they didn't have, like we have today, faucets, running water. Even water was a precious commodity. And therefore, they used to clean their house utensils in a bucket, not in running water. So the families, the custom was then that each week after Shabbos, they'd pour out the meat dishes in the water of the bucket. And this water was fatty and so on from the leftover meat. They used to keep in order to give the next day, Sunday, to the cow that's they have a cow in the court that provided the milk, etc. And so the cow was used every Sunday, throughout the week he used to drink regular water. But on Sunday he used to have special water that had this fat. And so the whole week the cow was waiting for Sunday in order to get this tasty dish. It happened once that one of the family members, by mistake, poured out the bucket of the water from which the dishes of Shabbos had been rinsed. So next morning, when the cow gets its Sunday morning, is getting its bucket, he got very angry. It's regular water. Where's the tasty water? So he thought to himself, what happened? Obviously, someone is envious of its bucket of water and took the bucket for themselves. And the cow was thinking who could have done this? And it must have been only the balabos, the owner of the house, that took the water for themselves. End of story. It's understood, obviously, that for human beings, this water is not a delicacy, but it's actually disgusting. Not only they're not envious of the cow, but they wouldn't want to drink it. And they'd even be nigolim, completely repugnant in it. But for the cow in her world, this water, the Sunday morning water, was something precious, and she's convinced that it's the owner of the house that stole it from her, that wanted it. So the Chassid concluded to the maskil the obvious conclusion. He said, you and I perhaps, where honor and gold and silver is important, so this is our world, and that's what we think is. So then we're jealous when we see that it appears to us that someone else has more than we do. But the truth is that someone who is on a completely different level, but you are talking about, that you are accusing them of, not only is it not present, but it's something that's completely abhorrent in their world. And he's telling him in a nice way that you are the cow. That's in the world that you live in, and that's why you have this attitude. And with this, he's inviting him, come a little bit closer and see what's really happening, and you'll encounter a world where gold and silver and covered. It's not only doesn't exist, but it's abhorrent, and what's desired and what's real is a different order of life completely.